This video is a confession of some sort. Hi, my name is Nadya. I'm the face behind the Lemon Knit channel where we discuss all things knitting every Thursday. And I love everything bright, colorful, and sparkly. So when I started knitting a year and a half ago, I dove right into the whole world of knitting notions, knitting tools, and everything you can buy for knitting because they are all cute, bright, and sparkly things. Now, I'm not proud of it. I definitely am over consuming in some parts of knitting, even though most of the times I find a way for things to work, or I find people that will actually use the things that I did not like and I can pass it on to them. So I'm not exactly buying the whole store of knitting notions and then just like donating them or something like that. But still, I am to blame for buying too much. But it's a very important topic to talk about because when you are a beginner knitter, it is very hard to understand what things you will actually need and will actually suit your process of knitting. And if you go online and watch some videos on YouTube on the knitting notions that are useful and useless, everybody has different opinion. You know why? Because it's impossible to tell that something will be useful or useless for you because knitting is a super personal process. Like everybody has their own preferences and there's nothing you can do about. So unless you actually try everything, you won't know whether it's something for you or not. Why is it bad? It's expensive and it's hard to find what to do with things you didn't like. So while I can't really help you with this because I also have my own preferences, I will try to show you everything I bought in a year and a half of knitting and talk about things that personally I find useful or useless about them that maybe will help you find the attributes that kind of correlate with your knitting style or maybe with your personality traits, for example. In my case, a lot of my purchases were not fitting my knitting style because of my ADHD, because they were tools that I thought would be helpful, but they were not helpful with all the chaos that's going on in my brain. Like, I have tools that I don't use just because, for example, I forget about their existence. That's also something. So this video is going to be about my own opinions, my own experiences with these tools and notions, but I hope it's going to be useful both for beginner knitters or maybe someone who is looking to upgrade their tools and notions, or maybe I will just have something that you never heard about and is gonna click in your brain that, that's gonna help me a lot. Who knows? For me, it's not just gonna be a fun walk down the memory lane, and I hope it's gonna be entertaining for you too. So let's get into it. Can we take a moment to appreciate my new coffee mug? Because, like, it has lemons. I am drinking from a lemon cup in a lemon sweater. And my channel is Lemon Knit. This is the most on-brand video I've ever done. I only need to drink some lemon juice. But no, it's coffee, sorry. I needed some coffee before we talk about everything. Let's start with the most important thing that you use for knitting, the one thing that you cannot do knitting without, literally, knitting needles. My first ever knitting needles were a random fixed circular needles from Adi. I got in a local yarn store because I had no idea what types of needles there were, what needles were good, what were not good. I didn't know anything. The only knitting experience was of me back in my high school years. I was knitting with straight wooden needles because my mom taught me to knit with them, and I was only knitting garter stitch scarves because that's the only thing I was ever taught. So when I decided to start knitting, it was not the I will research the world of knitting and find all the proper tools. It was, oh, look, there is some blue and white yarn in the grocery store being sold on like a very, very, very big discount. So, like, it was $1 per ball of wool. So, you can imagine the quality of this wool, but. And I just got so excited because I remembered how I was knitting those scarves. And I was like, hey, husband, would you like me to knit you a scarf? I can probably remember how to knit. So when I got this yarn, I had to buy needles for this yarn. All I knew was the picture on the yarn band around the yarn ball that said 3.5 to 4.5 millimeters. For me, it didn't say anything because before that point in my life, I didn't know that you had different sizes of needles, to be honest. I didn't think about it. Like, it's not because I'm dumb. I was just never paying thoughts to this topic, okay? So I went to the local yarn store that I knew existed because I bought a gift card there for my friend who was crocheting a lot. So I knew it existed. I did not know what I was looking for. And at that point, I also was not good at speaking Danish whatsoever. So I was too shy to talk to the owner of the store. And I decided I will be able to find the right needles by myself. Technically, I did. I saw the wall of needles and I found all the needles that had at least 3.5 or 4.5 on them. Then I did a very engineer thing because I was like, okay, if it says from 3.5 to 4.5 millimeters, then I will take the average. So I will buy the 4 millimeter needles. They didn't sell the straight needles, they only sold DPNs and fixed circulars. I didn't even know that circulars existed at this point. For me, needles were something straight from the movies that you do this with, you know? So I decided, ooh, circular, that sounds so cool. I will get these ones. I hope they're gonna work for a scarf. I don't know how they work, but I hope I'm gonna figure it out. And it was a pair of Adi needles. Now I know that. Back then I was like, ooh, they're metal. That's all I know. I can show them to you right now because I gifted them to my sister when I was visiting because I taught her knitting and left her some needles so that she can practice. So I don't have them on me, but they were just like the most typical Adi. I think they were lace, Adi lace. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but they were just like most basic metal needles you can imagine, and they were actually great. I can even say that now, just like remembering how they felt, how they moved, I would say they were one of my favorite needles ever, which is interesting because I nowadays only buy interchangeables. It's interesting that fixed needles were the ones I remember the most fondly. But after finishing the scarf and also trying to knit with a few more yarns on the same needles, I quickly realized that not every yarn can be worked on 4 millimeter needles, that some yarns are too thin and some yarns are too thick for them. So I decided that it's time to invest. My husband and I were like, okay, you need to get a set of needles of different sizes. And once again, we're both engineers, so we thought the most smart thing would be the interchangeable needle set. Because if you can change small parts of something without having to buy the full thing new, then even if something breaks, it will be easy to replace and it will be cheaper and everything, yada, yada, yada. That was very smart of us. What was not very smart of us is that we only knew about one website that was selling knitting notions and knitting needles. Not because there is only one site here, but because I just didn't look for more and I already ordered some yarn from this website, so I kind of trusted this website. So we decided to look for a knitting needle set there. We checked out the prices, we got horrified, so we ordered the ones that looked cheap enough to be good, but not ragingly bad to the look of it. Now, I swear I was trying to find the whole set in my apartment, but I feel like I hated those needles so much that I have hidden them somewhere. So I only was able to find one knitting needle. The brand officially is called Infinity Hearts, and the set was about $50. So not too many for a lot of needle sizes and cables and everything. Very quickly, I found out that those were exact needles that are massively sold on Temu, that Infinity Hearts basically just puts their logo on. Not even like on the needles are just like exactly the same as they were from Temu on the needle case it came with. So yeah, and on Temu they go for like $20. So that was a scam, in my opinion, allegedly. Now, these needles were in fact interchangeable, so I got a lot of different needle sizes, and I was so happy about that. At the same time, they were almost impossible to lock, even with the grip, like the rubber grip thing, and with the key, so that they don't unravel. They were like too easily unraveling. And then some of them were very easy to break the whole like metal part where you connect the needle to the cable. Basically, like you can break off this thing. I don't know how to call it, like this spiral thing that goes up that you use for the twist. And then you will never be able to screw your needle in. Then this like place where the connector goes into the rubber cable, it is catching everything. You can see how my nail, yeah. Also, this is aluminum needles, I think. I'm not sure if you will be able to see, but all of the tips, after like a very quick amount of time, lost the coating on these needles. So it's like bare aluminum, and they stink so bad. Like I am very sensitive to smells, and they stink. And the cable itself is super thin and super thick and not bendy at all. You can see how it, like, yeah. Let's just say that was not a pleasant experience, but at that time I was happy about it because I finally got like a full collection of needles. So I started trying this and that. I started knitting different things. I knitted my first ever garment. It was a lace cardigan on these needles. Can we praise me for that? Because that was pain. And then we decided it's time to invest into an actually good set of needles for my birthday last year. The set in question was, this time we did the research, like it wasn't a spontaneous purchase. And the set in question was the renewed Knit Pro Nova metal set. This was a newer version of the Knit Pro needles. If you're from US, as far as I understand, is the same brand that goes by Knitter's Pride in US. I went through a million of videos on YouTube on what are the best knitting needles, and most of them were agreeing that this set is like the best you can do for budget-friendly options. Now, the set comes with needles from 3 millimeters to, is it 10 or is it 8? I think it's 8 millimeters. I wouldn't be able to tell because unfortunately, these needles have printed numbers on them. So like the sizing, it was printed on most of them. Like you knit one garment with them and the whole printed thing, it just like chips away. So you don't know what size they are unless you buy a needle gauge. So like basically the thing where you put, I will show you later because I have it for this specific reason. Now, the set itself has a lot of things for a knitter, so it's definitely a buy one, get a lot of things in a set kind of situation. So we have, it's not very tidy. It's supposed to like be stored, all the cables are supposed to be stored in these sections. I'm not doing that. But it has all the needles you can hope for. I guess, if you don't plan to knit something smaller than 3 millimeter or larger than 8 millimeter. Spoiler, I did, so we'll see more needles in my collection. And the cables you see are not exactly the cables that came with the set, because, fun fact, in the year that I was using the set, I broke every single cable that came with the set. Yeah. It's partially on Knit Pro, partially on me, because I have a very specific knitting style where there is a lot of pressure put on the connection between the cable and the connector. So basically, it just snaps in half because of the weight of fabric that is holding onto there. Like in the last few months of me knitting with Knit Pros, I managed to find a way to lessen this weight so they were not snapping all the time. But still, even though I fixed everything, the new Mindful collection cable still broke on me right in the middle of knitting a sweater. So I think I was just not made for Knit Pro cables. That is sad, but that's a fact. So, and the purple cable you can see there is also not from the set. I bought it separately because they introduced swivel cables into collection. Swivel cables is basically when you can actually turn your connector and the cable swivels easily inside of it. So there's less problems with yarn getting stuck while knitting because the cable can easily do another round and not like grip onto it. Now the set also came with their own scissors, their own measuring tape, a few stitch markers, a few cable stoppers. Let me see if I can find them. Yes, so like these are the things you put on the end of the cables if you want to, for example, rest your stitches on a cable without needles. It came with a small bag of keys for tightening your needles. I will show them later, but there was actually also a full set of 10 plasticky stitch markers that were like full round stitch markers. And this is actually, I would say, the most important thing in this set, because those are the stitch markers I use still daily. For a beginner knitter, this set was amazing. It was much better than my Temu/Infinity Hearts one. The needles were much better in terms of how they performed, of the material. They did not smell that bad. The sound and the tips themselves were much better, but now actually that I'm checking them out, I can see that the coating is also off. So no needle sizes, no coating, but it survived long enough. You can even see how the color changed on these ones. These are, I think, 4.5 because I mostly used them, so they are the most tarnished. Now, would I recommend this set for a beginner? I think yes. I have a lot of grievances about this set, but I strongly believe that for the price, in my personal opinion, it is a good beginner set because you will be able to get a hang of knitting. And once you understand that you are really, really, really into knitting and you do want to continue knitting forever, then you can think about changing these needles to something that will fit your style of knitting better. But I also know people that just like love these needles so much that they just continue to use them and don't have that many problems. It's just that I'm not the biggest fan of it. But I'm super thankful for these needles because they were definitely a great option for starting my way into knitting and not making me give up instantly on knitting, because they were quite good. Now I have a few more different Knit Pros here because Knit Pro is also good in the meaning of them having their cables universalized so that you can use the cables with all types of the needles, I believe. So I also tried Knit Pro Cubics. These are the needles that I'm not sure if you can see good, but they are square tip. They're supposed to be better for your grip, so they are more ergonomic. I would say they are more ergonomic, and I preferred to use them over the circular ones. But one of my biggest grievances with all of the Novas and the Nova Cubics was that they were very like thick on the tip, and I like doing lace. So for me, it felt like knitting with logs in a way, like, why doesn't it fit through the loop? So that was not for me. And another type of needles I tried from them were the wooden ones. I don't remember. I think they're called Symphony. I'll check myself in editing. But they're basically the wooden needles. And these ones, at least the shorter ones, I absolutely would not recommend because this pair has its swirl broken inside, so I can't connect it to the connector, and I used them like twice. And the second pair, so I only had two pairs of them. And the second pair, oh, I don't even have it anymore. Damn it. I don't even have it anymore, but it snapped. But I mean, the wooden part snapping is something that is normal for wooden needles, even though it's not perfect. And especially not perfect for 4 millimeter, that is like quite thick wood. But, well, it is more normal for that to happen in any knitting needle brand. The whole swirl on the connector, though, not perfect in my opinion. Not something that happened with me with other needles. My next needle purchase were drops needles because I needed needles in sizes 12 and 10 millimeters for a dress I was knitting. So I bought drops cables and drops classic needles, and I haven't knit a dress with them. I resold them on Vinted almost immediately. They were bad. They were similar to Novas, but they were also much thicker tip-wise. They felt weird. They were like empty on the inside, so they were not very cozy to hold. They were smelling bad, like really bad. And also, I hated the knitting motions with them. The cables also were like, ugh. So I immediately sold them. I don't have them with me. I'm very glad that somebody bought them off me. I hope that they like them. They got a great deal from me. Like, I sold them new needles that two of them were still in the package for like, I don't know, $5. So I hope they're happy. I also, since the Knit Pro set only came from 3 millimeters, and I had some projects that required 2 millimeters and 2.5, and also I needed something shorter for sleeves because I was going insane with my long cables knitting on sleeves because all the short ones that were in the set I broke. So I started buying Adi needles. I used to be a tight knitter, and you can kind of see my fabric had a lot of tension. That's the shape of the cable. But I must say, Adis are very impressive. Honestly, I actually like them very much because this, like, the place between the needle and the cable is almost completely flat, so it doesn't catch on yarn. And I really like using these for like a, how do you call them, mittens and things like that. I even, if I remember correctly, I needed some socks on these. So these ones I really liked. I have the same needles, but like with a longer cable and the longer version of them that I was using for camisole number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. Really like the sound of these ones. And you know what? After knitting a lot with them, they still have their numbers on them. So And last, I also tried the ergonomic version of Adis because I was thinking about buying a set of Adis that were the ergonomic, I think they're called Adi Rocket, something like that. They're not square, they're more like wavy texture, so like thicker, thicker cube, smaller cube, thicker cube, smaller cube. And from ergonomics point of view, absolutely love them. From the cables point of view, I love them a little bit less because it's a bit transparent cable. And the only way to find out what size these needles are is to read the text that is written on a transparent cable. So every time I'm trying to understand how many millimeters are these needles, because you can't really use a normal needle gauge for it because it's not a proper circular shape, I have to be like, it's 3 millimeter. 3 millimeter. Now I know. I need to remember that because otherwise, every time I need to do that. Now, after suffering with knitting like different sleeves and collars and socks on not very fitting cables with my knit pros, I talked to my husband and he gifted me for Christmas a set of shorties, of Chaogu shorties. And let me say, I was very confused in the beginning. I absolutely did not understand how to hold Chiaogu shorties. It felt like you don't understand how to grip it perfectly. I even had to ask my TikTok friend to record me a video of how she uses shorties. And I must say, there were a lot of people there who thanked me and her for asking her for a tutorial because there were other people who were like, how do I hold this? So it has quite a steep learning curve. Once I got a grasp of it, I'm very sorry to say, but I love my shorties. Xiaogu is a very controversial brand because a lot of people don't understand what would excuse the needles to be that expensive. And I'm gonna lie, for the longest time ever, I was saying that I also don't understand how good the needles can be for you to be to want to pay the price. But we'll get to what I think now a little bit later. Let's start with the shorty set. This set has a small pouch with these cute needles. Basically, there's like a little bit longer one and a little bit shorter one. You can see that one of the sizes here only has one needle in each pocket. That's because I, with time, realized that for me it's easier to knit with them when on one side of the cable I use the smaller one and on the other I use a longer one. It kind of works for me, so I use them like that. This one is the red set and it goes from 2 millimeters to 3.25 millimeters. There's also a blue set that goes for bigger sizes. I don't have that one yet, but actually I'm thinking about investing in it because it's very cool. I use them for all the sleeves and all the cuffs and all the neck openings, and I'm knitting socks on them right now. I really like them. I don't think I like them that much for socks, actually, because I prefer to knit socks two at a time. So I might as well, I will use Magic Loop anyway, so no point to use shorties. But I swear by them for sleeves, cuffs, neck openings, any small circumference that you do. I also knitted some mittens on them. Absolutely loved the process. So you get 3 cables for them. I have only 2 here because one cable is in the socks that I'm knitting. A needle gauge, actually, this is what comes with the set. But the funny thing is, no matter how many times I use them, the numbers of like sizes never went away. I think they actually lasered into the needles, which is super cool if you ask me. And I never had use for this thing anyway, so but I guess thank you for including it. There are some stoppers and some cute small stitch markers inside. And there's also a rubbery grippy tool, but it's in my project bag. So, and if you ask me, The set itself looks kind of cute. It has a carabin, so you can attach it to your bag. And out of all the needles that Xiaogu have, I think that's the only cute case they have, because like they're big needle cases for proper needles. I'm sorry, they're so ugly. But basically, this was the point where I was introduced to Xiaogu. I fell in love with the shorties, and I would recommend them if you, option one, hate Magic Loop and absolutely do not want to use Magic Loop ever again. Number two, knit a lot of things that require you to knit small circumference and you don't like using DPNs. And number four, it's number three, isn't it? I can't count. Me, oh, I'm an engineer. Yeah, I can count to three. Number three, if you like to have a very like compact needle set on the go so that you can start making something in any possible moment, because like this pouch is really small and you can technically buy a longer mini cable for the needles, so you can actually use the shorties but like with a long cable. Not sure how comfortable it's gonna be, but it's possible. The only thing you always need to remember with Xiaogus, other than needing to save up money to buy them because they are expensive, is that they have a very specific system with their cables and needles. They have three sizes of cables: mini, small, and large, I would assume. And each needle has assigned cable size that it can be worked with. So you won't be able to put these like shorties onto like a large cable or something unless you buy an adapter that will go in between cables for these sizes. So just make sure you check before you buy anything from Xiaogu that the needle you're buying is compatible with the cable you're buying, because and now we are getting to the most interesting, in my opinion, point of this video, the needles I am using right now. So this year I decided that it was time to invest into my forever needles. I was thinking about it a lot. I did not want to invest into full collection of Xiaogu needles because they were very expensive, but also I didn't see any like final argument for me to get them because Knit Pros were working fine. But then Xiaogu came out with Xiaogu Quads, which is their version of the ergonomic needles, the square tips ones. I've been waiting for them a long time, and they finally released them this year. And the moment they appeared in the Danish shop that was selling them, there were only like three of each size, and me and my friend Sarah, hey Sarah, she's probably watching, so we immediately got ourselves some quads. Now for Sarah, they were not the first needles from Xiaogu. She is an avid Xiaogu knitter. For me, these were the first Xiaogus I ever got. And that is exactly the needles I'm using right now and probably will use forever, to be honest. Now, I did not get all the sizes that they have, and you can see that some of the sizes are missing right now. That's because I have one project, two project, three project, four projects on my interchangeable Xiaogu needles. But quads were released like a few months ago only. They don't have a set version, so they are only sold separate. So I got the quads in the sizes that I use most and decided that I will just buy more at the point when I will need them, other than buying the whole collection, because I don't know how many times I've used like 6mm needles, maybe like once. So why would I buy them immediately? Like the biggest size I bought was 5.5, I think. Yeah, because that's the biggest I generally use. I don't really go for bulky sweaters or anything like that. So it's gonna be a problem from the future life. So what is so cool about quads that I love them so much? First of all, they are, as I said, square tip. So they are kind of like the cubics from Knit Pro that I used, but they are also still lace tipped. So their tip is quite thin. They're easy to use in any circumstance that I use them for. I use them for lace, I use them for cables, I use them for just stockinette knitting. And the coolest thing is my hands actually started getting fatigueless. So they actually do help with my chronic pains in my hands while knitting, which honestly I did not expect. So I know there's a lot of criticism for Xiaogu making them even more expensive, but as far as I understand, it's quite a unique construction the way they made them. And I can kind of tell that there is because the cubics by Knit Pro were more comfortable to hold, don't get me wrong, but it was nowhere near as comfortable as this. They're like the rib on the needles is super glidey, so it doesn't make you feel pain that much in the beginning because it is like there's like a curve of getting used to the cubic needles. You might like get some irritations because of these corners, but you get used to it so quick and so much quicker than the ones I used before. They are super lightweight. They also have lasered numbers of the needle size and also the number of, not number, but the letter of the cable to use with this particular needle, which is very helpful for me personally because I always forget which ones I need to use. I've been using them since I got them in February, so 5 months. I haven't broken anything yet. Very happy about that. The only thing I don't like is not about the needles, it's about the cables. I got the swivel cables. So the same idea as with Knit Pros, they can swivel around. And I can say now with the experience that if you want your Xiaogu cables to be swivel cables, I would recommend you get the red lace cables, like the classic famous cables, and get a swivel adapter for them instead of buying swivel cables. We have, on practice with my friends, found out that swivel adapter doesn't have as much of a gap between the connector and the cable, so it's going to be much more comfortable to use. Because this one, can you see how my nails literally get stopped? This is annoying as hell, especially if we are talking lace knitting, which I do a lot. Like thin yarns get stuck here like annoying as hell. So I'm a little bit sad that I invested into swivel cables. I got a lot of them in a lot of sizes for small size and for large size. And I'm honestly sad about that because I think I would be much better off if I bought some adapters and some red cables instead. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe one day I'll be able to invest and but just like sharing my thoughts. Another thing I want to say about the adapters that I just recommended, that my friend actually had her adapter break very quickly after purchase. Like I think she used it once. And as far as I understand, that is kind of the way they work right now. Like Xiaogu knows about this problem and they are fixing it. But I would say that if you want to follow my advice, wait a little bit and buy adapters after they fix the production problem that occurred on their production lines. So just don't rush with this. Wait a little bit. So yes, my favorite needles right now are the Xiaogu quads, and we can argue whether Xiaogu are worth it or not forever because there's always gonna be people who think it's too expensive for the needles, and I can't disagree with this. It is very expensive for knitting needles, but if it's something I can invest and just use them, probably not forever, knowing how quality of everything is nowadays, I don't think they will last forever, let me be honest with you. But for long enough time, I kind of feel like it's gonna be better than me having to continue buying Knit Pro cables for my needles forever every month. while panically trying to save the stitches that were falling off the broken cable. And if you want to ask, Nadia, you said that you were unemployed and broke and everything. Why do you have the fancy leather mood case? Vinted, guys. If you want to buy a case, please do not buy new. New cases in leather cost like $100. On Vinted, you will find them for like $20. Don't buy new. I just bought a jar of proper oil for oiling leather, and it looks as new. That was all the needles. That was already like half an hour of me talking, wasn't it? That is gonna be a long video. I kinda knew that when I was going into it. But hey, what can we do? Let's move into the notions. If you ask me, then the most important notion you can have with your knitting are the stitch markers. And stitch markers is not necessarily a thing you buy. Let me start with that. Before I got proper stitch markers, I was easily using leftover scraps of yarn. You can either make like a chain with your crochet hook and loop it and have like a crochet chain, or in my case, I was just doing this. Look at me, I'm making a stitch marker in real time. Whoopity boopity boop. There you go, you have a loop. I was literally doing that, just like making loops with scrap yarn and putting it on my needles. You can make them with thinner yarns if you are knitting a thinner yarn project. I usually cut off a piece of an end from the beginning of the project I'm working on and using this end, like just like making a loop and using them as stitch markers if I need. Some people use their earrings. Some people use their rings as stitch markers if they don't have one on hand. But obviously, it will be much easier if you invested in some stitch markers, and they don't need to be expensive. Now, the only type of stitch markers I would not recommend you is this set of son of the... You see them everywhere. They're sold everywhere. This is like the most basic stitch marker set you can imagine. Please don't get them. It's not only because I hate plastic as it is, it's mostly because they break like it's their job to break, I swear. They're so easy to break. I broke like 10, 12 of them, and I'm not even using them a lot. They were just like the most available option at the moment. So if you're buying your first ever stitch markers and you don't know what to use, I would recommend going for... Where is my, yeah, I can find my tin can. Is somewhere, I don't know where. The most basic bulb stitch markers. I thrifted mine for dirt cheap, but like literally every brand has them. They are this just like simple metal bulb that you can open by squeezing. And this is the most cheap and comfortable version you can use for your knitting because they're openable, they are quite thin, so you can use them as beginning of a round or as something to put on a stitch, or they're just universal, you know? And if you need different colors, they usually come in different colors. Like here I have a like more bronze one. There's a gold one here. As you can see, my stitch markers are a little bit intertwined, but that's because I have a very small tin with them. So that's kind of a user problem here. So these are the ones I would recommend you the most. Now, do I use them right now? No, because I, as I said, love everything sparkly, pretty, and bright. So I am the face behind overconsumption of cute stitch markers. Let's see my collection. First of all, my favorite ones is this collection from Cupid Knits. It's these like, this is a moon, and I also have some stars. Yes, there you are, come here. This is like small star. They're so cute and so shiny, and they look so good on every single project. They're fixed circular ones, so you can't open them. So I usually use them for raglan stitches or for beginning of the round, something like that. They are my absolute favorite ones. Oh, I thrifted these ones. These are just like circles with like some beads on them. They were very cheap, and I have 5 of them, so I usually use them when I need 4 places across my knitting to mark, and then change the 5th one to something special for the beginning of the round. Something like that. I have a set of stitch markers from Söstrarna Grene. They are very cheap, they are cute, but I must say I would not recommend them because, first of all, this like metal ring is not very high quality, so it gets tarnished really quickly. And second of all, these things are not exactly properly closed, so you can get your yarn stuck in them. And also these things, these dangly things, get into your knitting a lot, so you can easily wrap them around yarn and then suffer through it. So I personally don't like them that much. These ones you're gonna like. Most of my finger-named stitch markers are already on the projects because I use them all the time, but I do have some in my can. So they are also closed circular stitch markers with natural stones on them. And Amy, my friend from Fingernamed, is making them, and she gifted me a set of stitch markers for Christmas. And I absolutely love them. I mostly am using an opal, I think, and tiger's eye. I'm not sure. I'm very bad with stones, but they are so damn cute. I love them. Use them all the time. For the same reason of like marking beginning of the round or for regular increases. And because of the way she constructed them, they don't really get into the yarn too much. So like everything is she's very careful with closing stuff. So all the parts are not getting dragged with the yarn together. So very comfortable. It's an influencer moment. Use code lemonknit15 on her website to get 15% off the purchase. It's so pretty. Oh, here's the one I wanted to talk about. These are the Knit Pro stitch markers that I got in the set. They are just like rubbery plastic, and they are like the most simplest circular stitch markers you can find. So I would say they are quite universal to using on anything. The only bad thing, they are all the same, so you won't be able to differentiate them between themselves. So you will need something else to mark the beginning of the round, for example. My stitch markers, my treasure. Now, this is like my fancy stitch markers. I've got some hanging cats, like cats hanging from a stitch marker. I got some flowers. I got a bee. And all the other fancy ones are somewhere on my projects. And the last stitch markers I have is a mix between stitch marker and a row counter. This particular one is also by Amy from Fingernamed. This is, in Danish, it's called like a knitting fish. I'm not sure how, like maybe chain stitch marker or chain counter. I'm not sure how you would call it. But basically it's a set of circulars that you can use when you're knitting in the round. So basically you move to the next circle when you finish the round. So like, let's imagine like this is holding like that on your knitting. You finish the round and you move, like you take it off and put it onto the 4th circle instead. So when you get to the end of the round again, you will move to the next one. Or you can use this like dingly feather. You can unlock it and put on the circle that you want. So basically you're counting without using a proper row counter or writing anything down. Very useful, but not as useful if you are knitting flat because it will be falling off your needles if you knit like me. So I would say the perfect use for this is like counting increases on, maybe like when you're knitting something like a 10 row repeat, for example, you can use it for counting what row of the repeat you are on, things like that. Okay, the next notion I want to talk to you about is something I did not expect to happen, and it's a very recent one. I've been using this tapestry needle from Temu ever since I started knitting. I think it's aluminum. It's super lightweight, super cheap, super thick. I absolutely hated this needle, but I was like, it's a needle. No matter what quality needle is, it's just like the same motion we do for weaving in ends. So I didn't really see any reason for me to buy anything else. But this needle like started losing its coating and started smelling, and as I told you already, I'm very sensitive to smell, so I decided to buy another needle. And I went to the local yarn store, and instead of buying a cheap needle, I was like, maybe I will get a proper needle scent from Tulips or from a name brand. I'm sure it's not gonna be like that impressive. And I got this set of 4 tapestry needles with like curved edge in a cute magnetic case. This is one of the best knitting enhancements I got into my knitting journey the whole year and a half. And I did not expect that at all. I don't know how needles can change the whole weaving in ends process that much, but they did. I stopped hating weaving in ends because of how glidey they are and how they're not sharp, but they are much sharper than the ones I had before. They go like butter through my knitted fabric. So weaving in ends takes like no time at all. It is so silly that such a like small thing can get so much better with such a small investment and change your process like forever. So I won't recommend like this particular brand. I think you can just like buy good needles. If you can buy good needles, buy good needles. I found another stitch marker I haven't showed you. It's a flower one. It's so cute. Right? Right? Ah, Sakura. Aha. Scissors. I would recommend you to get good scissors for one reason. If you buy cheap scissors from Temu, for example, they become dull so fast. Unfortunately, it is like a problem, and if you don't have a way to sharpen them up, you will basically need to buy more and more scissors. That is not sustainable at all. So this is one more thing I would definitely prefer to invest more in the beginning and then not care about it at all. So also not a problem I thought I would be facing, but there we are. While we are on the notions that can go wrong section of my video, tape measurer. If you use the ones that are like automatic, be prepared that they break a lot, especially if you get the cheap ones. This one from Knitpro is actually lasting me quite a long time. It's been a year, I think, that I've been using it consistently. The one from System Grene broke in like a month, so keep that in mind. Needle stoppers. Some people think they are absolutely useless because you can just pick up your stitches back on the needles. I don't want to do that. Not because I can't, it's just like yet another thing to do that is easily solvable. You can use rubber bands to keep your needles together. You can pull your needles more from your project so that the needle, like the stitches, won't slip while you're walking somewhere. Or you can get cute needle stoppers. They are absolutely not a necessity, but for me, these ones in particular, like the star shaped from Cupid Knits, they are making me much more happy when I use them because I feel like I'm a fairy. I don't think they're useless because sometimes I don't have an option to pull the needles because I have too many stitches on my needles or something like that. And I knit outside a lot. So for me, it's a useful thing and I would recommend it. What I would not recommend is getting needle stoppers that don't have a out hole, so they're like caps, because they are much easier to fall off the needles. So always look for ones that have like the outgoing hole as well. Cable needles, don't have them. I mean, I do have them somewhere, don't use them at all. I got the plastic set of those of Timu, never use them. It's easier for me to either use just like drop the stitches and pick them back up to twist the cable, or use just another needle. Since I use interchangeables, I can just use another needle to put the stitches on. If it's like a big, thick cable I need to twist. Honestly, for me, it was the most useless thing I ever bought. They are somewhere in my trash pile in the cupboard. There's another thing I only used a few times and will never use again, and it's this kind of stitch holders for putting your stitches to rest. You cannot, in good life, tell me that these are comfortable to use. Like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Like, I don't see any scenario. Maybe when knitting flat, okay, I'll give you that. Maybe when knitting flat, that would be useful. But when you're knitting anything in the round, like putting sleeves on this or a thumb and creases, no, no. And instead of these, I have a combo. I got it off Timu, and I'm not proud of it, but it was much cheaper, so much cheaper than to buy the individual barber cords in a yarn store. I did buy some barber cords in the yarn store. They were super expensive, and they were actually sliding off my needles. So I went to Timu, I bought a full bobbin of barber cords, and it came with this plasticky thingy with mechanism to kind of hold it together, so that you don't need to actually tie your barber cords together, you just put it on the end. This is so much more useful for me. And even though I I don't really like buying anything off Timu, but it's one of the things I think that kind of is much more appropriate to buy not in the local yarn store. I'm sorry. Like, the overcharge is insane in the yarn store for these things. Another random notion that I really like is this like cardboard tags from System and Grane. I use them to tie to a gauge swatch to know which needles are used for this gauge swatch and what yarn it is for future reference. Otherwise, I will forget. Oh, look, it's the cable needle I don't use. Now, a thing I do use, but I would like to upgrade, is this kind of a row counter, like the one where you need to twist the ends to change the numbers in the windows. First of all, I had two of them. One of them is now in the fjord because I dropped it off the balcony, so I only have one left, and one is not enough for me. I used to use a My Row Counter app for tracking my rows. I find it much easier to track my anything with the physical counters other than a mobile app. I don't know if it's like, it's probably just my personal preference or something. But I really like to have a physical copy of a row counter and taking it with me, because I don't like relying on my phone, and also don't like using my battery on my phone for changing amount of rows in the app. So I really prefer something like this, but these ones in particular are quite hard to twist, so it does get annoying. And also you can't really put it on the project because they were made to be put like on the end of straight wooden needle, and that's not exactly what I'm doing, right? I have circulars. So I would prefer to invest in like a clickery one that can also be clamped to a project bag or something like that. I'm looking for options. If you have your favorite roll counter, go on, and I'm open to suggestions. I really like the one that Good Yarn Bed Knits got, but it's like super expensive and I know I won't be able to afford it and justify the purchase for myself. So suggest anything but that. I will just like sit in awe and watch hers. And now I have a big category of anything to hold yarn in. Things I would not recommend you buying that I got is a yarn ball. You know why? Because you can use any ball. Literally any ball or cup. I literally have this this cup here that I use as a yarn ball holder when I need it. And it's much easier and smaller. I use it much more often than my yarn ball. Though I have also this kind of yarn holder, the twisty ones. And I have the one that is very hard to show you, but the one with like magnetic things holding them on top. And while I use all of these options because I have multiple projects, so I need my yarn actually just like planned around, the one I really like using is the magnetic holder one because it just like it doesn't let your yarn tangle. It's very comfortable in use, and it also has like a small slot for your crochet hooks if you need ones, and some place for your knitting notions. So I also use it as a notion bowl kinda. So it's just very comfortable to use. I really like it. In second place would be the spinny one, the wooden spinny one. And yarn balls are the last because they're just like... It's the same as knitting from project bag, to be honest. Now, two more big notions I use are Yarn Winder and Yarn Swift. I don't see how you would use them if you didn't use yarn that comes in hanks and not yarn balls. So unless you're planning to use some yarns that are either hand-dyed or just come in skeins or cones and you want to rewind them, or you plan to start spinning your own yarn, I don't think you need to invest in any of these. If you do, look on Vinted, look on your local marketplace, Facebook marketplace. A lot of people are selling them. A lot of charity shops have them. Don't buy them new. The new ones actually are worse because all the plasticky ones will break immediately. Always look for more quality option because if you're gonna use it, look for something you're gonna be able to use for a long time. For blocking, I have blocking mats, and the only thing I will say that yes, they are great and I use them all the time, but if you are going to invest into blocking mats, don't buy blocking mats from a yarn store or a yarn brand. Don't. They are too expensive for what they are. Go to either charity shop to children's section or just to online baby store and look for like soundproofing mats for the floor that they put in children's rooms so that they can run around safer. You get twice the amount for half the price. Do not get. I swear to God, just like don't get the blocking mats per se. It's the same thing. Literally the same thing. And the second type of blockers I have is actually a gift from my friend Sarah. She 3D printed these knitting socks blockers for me. They are modular, so you can add this part for the size you need. It's gonna be the length of the size that you need. So this one is 45, 46 because I'm knitting socks for my husband. And you just like easily slide it in and it clicks inside. So you can use it to block your socks. That is super helpful. So I am extremely thankful to Sarah because that was an amazing gift. If you need something to pin your things to the blocking mats, pretty much all craft stores have pins that are usually on discount. And if you want the like the comb looking ones. Buy on Timo. Because most of the brands that sell those actually are buying them off Timo and just like placing their name on the box. I noticed that the box is even like they didn't change the box. They used the same box. They just put a sticker on top with their name. And that's late stage capitalism for you. Now I got some more like random things like a brush to fluff up your alpaca, different depeelers, different. Oh, I got an eye cord maker because Amy gave me one that she wasn't using. And I must say, they're all novelty things. Like eye cord maker, I am using from time to time when I need an eye cord, but it's not you always that you need just like an eye cord, not even like an eye cord bind off, just an eye cord. So that is a novelty thing, isn't it? I think the only last thing I would recommend is getting good crochet hooks in small sizes, in case you are dropping stitches a lot, because it makes it quite quick to pick it up. But nowadays I only use it very rarely because I usually pick it up with just like the needles I am knitting with. So, oh, I just realized I have another set of knitting needles that I got of Timu. These knitting needles. They are awful, but I do use them actually. Not for knitting at all. I use this very thick one to skein up my yarn. You know, when you're twisting your yarn and then putting one, yeah, this is what I use to twist my yarn. Great purchase, very thought through. And another knitting notions everybody uses are project bags, but I don't have anything fancy to show you because I use different tote bags. I use different just like cosmetic makeup pouches. I don't really use like project bags to be fair. So anything with a drawstring or anything relatively shaped like a bag that you can close in one capacity or another kind of works. So this is one of the things I did not invest into like high quality project bag. And I don't really see how I would invest into something like this. But if somebody decides to gift me one, like I know my husband is thinking of getting me a redesigned project bag for Christmas, I will opt for it. Like I like cute things. It's just not something I will invest myself. And you know what? I think that's it. There is a chance I will remember something else, then you will see editing Nadia chiming in with your comments, but I think that's it for now. Now tell me, do you use any of these tools and maybe you do not agree with my points? Maybe you actually like some of the things I don't like? I'm very open to talk about it in the comments, and I will be very interested to see other perspectives because, as I said, knitting is very subjective. Like, we are all super different, so we like very different things. So, anything I hate, you might like, and the other way around. Kind of feel like Chaogu needles will be the most questionable thing on my list because a lot of people don't agree with needing to pay that premium price for knitting needles. What can I say? For me, it's worth it, and everything I told you about today is my personal opinion. Don't cancel me. Hope to hear from you in the comments, and I'll see you the next week.